to special investigations. Today's episode, The Italian Connection, hosted by Jaime Maussan.
Antonio Urzi has been considered the best UFO hunter for many years. This fashion designer from Milan, Italy, claims to have recorded extraordinary images of what appear to be large spacecraft and other unknown objects that are inexplicable in conventional terms. His family and friends were initially suspicious, but eventually became witnesses as well.
My parents remember that since I was a 4-year-old boy, I already had those experiences, seeing things in the sky. My great fortune is that now I have a way to obtain proof of their presence.
We arrived in Livorno, the place where Antonio Urzi was born, the city where he observed his first objects, and even years later, he was able to continue videotaping them.
Antonio spent many hours during the night watching the sky, and I asked myself, how is it that he never gets tired of doing that? I realized when we were together, he would say to me, "Look, Mom, up there." And I saw it, and it was true. A moving object that we saw together.
Since Antonio was a child, he has been obsessed with looking at the sky. Personally, I am not someone who spends a lot of time doing that. But one day, I went up to the terrace because Antonio was there. And as always, he was absorbed and looking at the sky. He told me that he had seen a UFO. I thought that it was his imagination, but for him, it was his passion.
Antonio Urzi moved to Milan from Livorno at a young age and worked his way in the fashion industry as a stylist. Some of his clients include Lady Gaga, Christina Aguilera, Rihanna, Naomi Campbell, Britney Spears, and Beyoncé.
I continue to feel young despite my 45 years. I am a fashion stylist and a man who has experiences with aliens that visit our planet. I am a witness of this incredible truth. And now, as an adult, I have the opportunity to videotape UFOs. My parents remember that since I was a 4-year-old boy. I already had those experiences, seeing things in the sky. My great fortune is that now I have a way to obtain proof of their presence, that I consider of great importance. It has become a central part of my life. I'm an Earthling, and I have this mission to capture UFOs on video and spread this truth to the world.
All the research we have done on this field and the analysis obtained from the photographic and video material, along with the testimonials of the people we have interviewed, allow us to determine that this case is real. There is nothing false in any sense. What is interesting is that I began as an investigator and ended up becoming a witness. Having traveled to many different places of the world with Antonio to attend conferences and events, I can assure you that I have seen with my own eyes these spaceships that follow him and revealed themselves to him, especially at his home in Cinicello Balsamo and very close to his camera. It is such a unique case, maybe the top of its kind, in modern history of UFOs. As far as I know, and after investigating so many similar cases from Europe and the Americas, none of them had the enormous quantity and variety of objects filmed as Antonio Urzi.
Antonio has recorded dozens of these videos. Some of them are considered the clearest proof of unidentified flying objects. However, it is remarkable that a single man has achieved so many images. Urzi claims it's because he can feel it in his body when a strange object is going to appear in the sky.
One morning, I told Simona, "I'm not going to work today. I'm going to the park because I can feel something is going to happen." And the moment I arrived, boom, I saw a small circle and started videotaping. and that's what everyone around me could see.
The first video Antonio Urzi recorded was in September 2003. It is very low quality and not very convincing. He recorded supposed spacecraft at low altitude. They were practically in front of Antonio, but his camera had very little resolution and range.
A long time ago, for most of the videos, I used to have this kind of camera, an analog 8mm. Remember those? 8mm cassettes? It was later when we got the digital camera, an HD model. A lot of times things happen just by luck. I really can't remember if at that time I felt something special. I'm talking about 2003 and 2004. Most of them appeared in June 2004, when a long silver flying saucer at low altitude showed up while I was in the bathroom. I saw the object through the open lid of the bathroom window. I ran to the roof of my house and started the recording. My camera is always with me because I want to be ready to film at any moment. The objects are always near where I'm standing. A spaceship once stopped right above me, and I immediately grabbed the camera. In June 2004, I recorded a memorable object with amazing clarity.
Antonio's wife, Simona Sibilia, has also been a witness to the strange objects for over 20 years.
The first time I saw a ship with Antonio was in Portofino, and I started shouting, and I was in the car and screaming like crazy. I bent down because I was terrified, but now when I see a UFO, it is already a regular thing, is part of my life, I think. It is even more natural for him, because I see him, happy for the moment he wakes in the morning. Since 2003, we began to have those experiences. The first year when we started having those experiences, we didn't have a video camera. It was something just between us, a private experience that we didn't share with anyone. But when Antonio got the cameras, he started videotaping the ships almost every day. 6 or 7 times a day, on one occasion. In summer, it was so hot, I got up, and Antonio was not in bed. And I found him in the window with the camera, recording a large number of UFOs of all types and sizes. It was something incredible. For us, it was a natural thing. Antonio filming those ships was like having coffee in the morning. This becomes like a war we have to win. The experience is terrific. I'm an average, ordinary woman and mother of a family, and sometimes it is hard to deal with so many incredulous people. What we live is real. If there are some who do not believe us, maybe it is because of envy.
Several experts analyzed the videos and determined the strange objects were different sizes. Some measured more than 100 feet, and others measured only 20 feet. On July 20th, 2004, Antonio recorded 2 very different objects, the first at 3:51 p.m. and a second at just a few minutes later. Both measure around 60 feet in diameter. In November of the same year, Antonio began recording during the night, and on the 18th, he captured a metallic-looking figure for 45 minutes. On November 27th, he was able to videotape an alleged spacecraft flying above a light reflection, which, according to Antonio, were the lights of a playground near his house. Finally, on December 3rd, he was able to capture an object that would appear in other videos years later. The object stopped in front of Antonio's house like if it was posing for his camera.
I generally get up between 4 and 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm always waiting to see a UFO. It's like a disease, because your mind is in another place. Of course, I say these in a positive sense. I need to be completely focused when I am doing it. The goal of filming these events was to record these personal experiences. I didn't have any intention of publishing the videos in any media. It was only a personal experience. People questioned why it was only me who could record the spaceships. But it is not my fault. It's not me who decides the situation. If the spacecraft arrives, I will film it, sometimes daily.
In the face of the extraordinary evidence that Antonio Urzi has been able to obtain since 2003, great doubts arise. How was a single person capable of obtaining so many clear images of such varied objects? To confirm their authenticity, we turn to Giuseppe Garofalo, one of the most renowned specialists in video analysis. Garofalo can determine with 100% certainty whether an image is real or fake, whether it was created on a computer, whether it is a scale model, or even whether it is a mistake.
All the results are conclusive because all the material of Antonio Urzi is original and real. On April the 17th, 2018, we conducted several in-depth studies of the last Antonio UFO videos. Some people on social media were saying, "It's not a spaceship, but a dog's bowl." However, here we can demonstrate that the bowl has smaller dimensions and shows a different composition when it is exposed to the sun. When calculating its area, it generates a major density concerning a bigger object. Here we can see the value of the brightness of the bowl compared to the UFO. The bowl was on 130 to 255, and Antonio's UFO is 54, almost triple the difference.
From the beginning of my investigation of these events, I collaborated with Giuseppe Garofalo, the man that has an incredible talent for working with computers, as well as an impressive level of analysis. I can tell you that in all the videos reviewed, we proved that none of this material was false. Not any of them. Giuseppe's analysis has revealed much more information than we have published so far in our programs, interviews, and articles. I am familiar with the majority of Giuseppe's work, and it is truly remarkable. Neither he nor I have found anything that could cast doubt on the veracity of the material that Antonio Urzi has presented to us. Not even the slightest hint of doubt.
We are near Antonio's home in the street of Giovanni Battista Pergolesi in the city of Sinicello Balsamo, one of the suburbs of Milan. It was here that Antonio first captured half a dozen truly spectacular videos of flying objects right outside his window.
For example, once we saw a robot, about 6 feet tall and long, like a cylinder, and the head with eyes. I was on the balcony and took the camera to record what's happening. It passed over the roof of all the houses. It turned and looked at me. After that, another event. An orange light that rose above the cars. Not a normal event. How can you describe that to people? Many people in the world have similar experiences, and this is a way to give them strength, to speak without fear.
In 2018, Antonio began to record the sky with improved video equipment to capture objects at a much higher altitude. Accompanied by a few dozen people, he was able to record from a park in Milan using a lens with a special attachment that gives it a range similar to a telescope. The images captured included a luminous body that appears to be made of plasma, and inside it, 3 objects can be seen turning on and off. The group accompanying Antonio was also able to capture similar images recorded with conventional cameras, which had a limited range.
It is a case that perhaps the human mind cannot yet understand or imagine. Other contactees have seen 2, 3, or maybe 5 spaceships. Antonio has seen many more. As a researcher, we do not publish that activity because we do not know what they are. These events are something that happen in the sky, and you can watch it. That is all we know. They are not of this earth. It is more significant, critical, and complex than we can imagine in our fantasies. For me, this is something that gets credibility to this case.
On October 17, 2005, around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Simona Sibilia, Antonio's wife, observed in the sky a black figure that after a few minutes changed its shape and turned into something that she and her niece, Gloria Ricci, would identify as a horse.
Sono stata per 3 minuti buoni, anche 4.
At first, I did not know what it was. I stayed and watched it for a couple of minutes, then went to the window to see him more closely. I was amazed and called Antonio, and immediately he went for his camera to film it. I couldn't believe how close I was. That's a vision I'll remember for the rest of my life. As I said before, at first, I did not know what it was, because it didn't look like a horse. It was an effigy that changed its form. First, it was a UFO, and later, it evolved into the shape of a horse. When I could see it more closely, it looked like a real-life horse, a huge animal with all the appearance of being alive. It even moved. I don't remember which part of his body. I did not focus my attention on that. Honestly, it seemed like he was trying to move his legs, and then it moved the head, just like a live horse.
In January 2007, Gloria Ricci, Simona's niece, was only 8 years old when she shared her statement on camera.
Era grande, muoveva le zampe e la coda.
He was big. He moved its legs and its tail. It was the size of a real horse, and sometimes it was spinning.
Certe volte.
Did you see that it was moving his legs and head?
Sì.
Yes,
E muoveva le zampe così.
he moved his legs like he was walking.
As if it was walking.
Sì. E intanto si muoveva.
And at the same time, it moved.
What color was it?
Marrone scuro.
Dark brown.
What do you think about a horse that flies?
Poteva volare.
I don't know. It was flying. He was really flying.
11 years later, Gloria Ricci confirmed her testimony in a new interview.
Era proprio un essere umano, un essere vivente.
The figure moved like a living being. Slowly, it approached us. It looked very large, and then it began to move away. It was almost like seeing it life-size. It was so big, I saw the steady movement of the slow and firm step. And I'm pretty sure it moved its tail and head. It was not a small horse. It had all the elements of an adult animal. This is not normal. You do not see these every day. I was in shock. Then I called Antonio, who arrived with a video camera and filmed everything. When people tell me that it was not true, I just ignored them. It was useless to try to explain the evidence and what I saw. Besides, there were other witnesses, and there is not much more I could do.
The history of Italy has had similar events captured for centuries. A painting in the Vatican Museum depicts Peter of Verona looking towards the sky and pointing to a flying horse. Another painting in the Palazzo di Avanzati in Florence shows a horse flying above a crowd, and a fresco painted by Francis Rossello di Jacopo includes a horse flying at a low altitude. Even though it is difficult to know if these paintings represent a true event, the resemblance to the visuals recorded by Urzi's camera is fascinating. On December 10, 2006, Antonio Urzi recorded one of his most extraordinary videos, the alleged apparition of a figure in the sky of Milan, and according to numerous witnesses, was that of a virgin.
Sì, Jaime, nel 2006, il 10 di dicembre.
On December 10th, 2006, a virgin manifested itself in the sky on Cinisello Balsamo. It was truly amazing, because the entire event lasted for 2 hours, from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. It was witnessed by almost 24 people. I managed to film it from the street and also from the living room of the house. The video shows people watching the event, even with binoculars. I remember that we only had a videotape for 53 minutes, and at the end, at 4 p.m., my camera suddenly stopped working and became unusable. Still, we managed to capture excellent images where it's clearly seen. That is the Virgin Mary. Analysis were made, and statements were taken from all the witnesses that confirmed the sighting. Another very particular thing is that I had a strange and intense feeling in my heart. At first, I thought it was the figure of a saint, but later, we found out it was the Virgin because of her dress. The camera was analog, and the quality was not excellent. However, it was possible to perceive the silhouette.
Luca Ricci, a 9-year-old boy, provided his testimony of the extraordinary event in 2006.
I saw the Virgin with a baby in her arms. She wore a blue cloak and had a halo on her head and bare feet. She was surrounded by a bright white background that was visible in the sky. When I saw her for the first time, her hands were together, as if she was praying. All of her skin was pale.
Luca Ricci drew this image of what he saw that afternoon on December 10, 2006. 11 years later, he confirmed again his past testimony.
I remember that we were out at my grandmother's house. Antonio was recording one of his videos. Then he called us to observe what he was seeing. It was a luminous figure in the sky, with a child in its arms, and dressed in a blue cloak. She was standing with the child in their arms and seemed to move in the middle, above a luminous sphere. But her face was not clear, only her figure. There were two different people, the baby and the Virgin.
In my opinion, Antonio's experiences are very similar to those of Giorgio Bongiovanni. The two of them unite their incredible abilities in a mystical and cosmic part, the stigmatized and the contactee. There is a very close relationship between the two of them. You know that many times, Giorgio notifies Antonio that he is going to record an event, and that happens a few days later. In the video of the Virgin, the two qualities, mysticism and extraterrestrial contact, are combined.
Giorgio Bongiovanni is a man who presents in his body the wounds of Christ, or stigmata. This event began on September 2nd, 1989, when in front of dozens of witnesses in Fatima, Portugal, the wounds of Jesus spontaneously appeared on his hands and then on his feet and side, bleeding almost every day since, for the past 4 decades. I encountered someone who presented in his body the alleged wounds of Christ, which appeared in him in an inexplicable way. I have witnessed him bleed on multiple occasions and in different countries, where I have even had the opportunity to perceive the smell of roses emanating from his wounds.
Today, in our materialistic modern society, video cameras can be purchased with the best image definition. It is a double-edged sword, one being indifferent, and the other is materialism. If Antonio's videos had been filmed 50, 60, or 70 years ago, a global commotion would have occurred. But not today, because very few get excited about the search for God and spirituality.
We are in the port of Pescara on the coast of the Adriatic Sea in Italy. In this place, an extraordinary story unfolded. An alleged mass contact over 50 years ago between extraterrestrial beings and a large number of Italians. It is a story that seems like a science fiction movie. However, there is plenty of evidence, as well as testimonies from several men who have decided to speak after decades of keeping silent.
In 2007, The book Mass Contact was published in Italy by Professor Stefano Breccia. The book presented an incredible story of massive contact between extraterrestrial beings and a group of Italians. The case developed between the years 1956 and 1978, which is the year where the case ended. The story presented in the book by Professor Breccia with the memoir of Bruno Samicizia, who at that time was the head of the contact group. Before he died, in 2003, Samicizia called Breccia and asked him to write the book, so that these incredible contact stories would not remain in oblivion.
Why did you write the book?
Well, first and all, because Bruno Samicizia, who has been the major character in this history here in Italy, wanted that I write this book. For the whole of his life, he was convinced to keep everything secret, but in the very last years of his life, he decided to let people know about what has been going on. Most of the persons involved were at a rather high level in our society, and so they were fearing that their careers could get destroyed if they were speaking about such things. I am retired, and so I risk nothing in this moment, and so I decided to write the book. And I got in touch with many of the aliens, but there was a person among them which was my major contact, usually much taller than ourselves. There are also a group of people very small. There are also persons with different skin, slight bluish skin, people with a slight white skin, with pale hair. There are a lot of different kinds of aliens living here on Earth.
Did you travel in their ship?
I did.
Would you describe the interior?
The environment is clean. There are no angles between the walls. There is no source of light inside. You feel no acceleration. You feel no noise at all. You could not understand what is going on if you were not looking at the instrument panel. It's a touch screen with icons. The computer in every moment shows only the icons which may be necessary to the pilot. But most of all, the pilot does nothing. He just asks the computer to perform. And it chooses at random. So nobody knows what the saucer is going to do.
Professor Breccia followed Mass Contact with another book, 50 Years of Amicizia, where he recorded several encounters with the alleged alien race, describing in detail the shape and functionality of their ships.
This has been taken just in the center of Pescara. I was living there, and you see there is a circular craft with windows in it and a small antenna on the top of it. This picture maybe is very interesting because it has been taken from this place, looking that way. In that moment, there was no road, no houses, there was nothing. You see, it's about 1958. This is a picture of one of our friends. He was a rather tall man, let's say 2.5 meters. He was suffering from too much light. These are two pictures taken by Ghibaudi near Montesilvano shore, and are a sequence from 12 pictures that show flying saucers flying at low heights over the shore of Montesilvano. Most of the pictures have been made via Polaroid camera. And so, you know, a Polaroid camera does not give negatives, and so it's almost impossible, not totally impossible, but it's very difficult to fake such pictures.
In his book, Professor Breccia makes a request to the still living but unknown protagonists to come forward publicly and provide their testimonies. On the other hand, the material captured by the contactees included a huge number of films and photographs left for the world to see.
Photographs, films, and testimonies. Alleged proof, supposedly demonstrating the existence of direct contact between terrestrials and aliens from another galaxy. The history of Amicizia goes back to 1956 until 1978, involving a group of advanced beings helping the human race. There were witnesses of great importance, as was the case of the consul Alberto Perego, who wrote the first books on the subject in 1970, the Perego Report and the Extraterrestrials' Return.
Inside these books, Consul Perego includes an incredible series of photographs taken inside the flying saucers that landed near Pescara. There are also 2 photographs of an alleged extraterrestrial pilot that Consul Perego was able to publish, thanks to his involvement in the Amicizia case. Perego wrote that the aliens have intervened several times in world crises, preventing nations with nuclear weapons from instigating a war that could end humanity.
Bruno Samicizia, the leader of the contact group, was a renowned psychologist and an author of Catholic and theological subjects who wrote more than 160 publications. Samicizia received multiple academic and theological recognitions, and supposedly he became the leader of the human beings involved in Amicizia after their first encounter, which occurred at the Rocca Pia, a castle located near Pescara.
The contact started thanks to an ancient map found by Bruno Samicizia. He traveled to the Rocca Pia on several occasions in search of a possible contact. Together with his friend, Joan de Carlo, one night, while walking on a small road, he saw a luminous mist forming in front of them. And in a few minutes, the mist took the shape of 2 beings. One was a tall man, more than 8 feet in size, and the other was a small man, about 3.5 feet tall. The taller one was called Sinas, and the smaller was called Sayu. The beings explained to the Italians that they had built a huge underground base, which was 200 miles long, starting at the city of Pescara in the south and ending up in the city of Rimini in the north.
According to Stefano Breccia, the human group chosen to be in touch with the aliens was deeply moved by the profound morality of the alleged extraterrestrials. They seemed incapable of harming another living being, and according to Breccia, the 200 members in the group swore to keep it secret for over half a century. The contact group was called W56 because the W stood for the acronym ALIVE and 56 for the year in which the contact was made.
You see, a very close friend of mine, who is the author of a book, a recent book about this case, Stefano Breccia. Well, we were both students at that time and we experienced the same thing. The only difference is that Stefano was extremely involved in this story, and me not. But I knew everything, of course, and so when he had thought to write down all this story, I told him, I think it's the case you do it. And if you like, I may also write a preface for your book. And frankly, I think that there is a growing awareness in people about the presence of extraterrestrial beings all over the world. You see, for instance, no more than a couple of months ago, the Italian national television made a poll. They asked people, what's your opinion about UFOs? The result was incredible. The 74% of people said, I believe it. This means that most of them are ready.
Gaspare di Lama participated in Amicizia between 1960 and 1965. He was one of the men closest to Samicizia. Although he separated from the group, Because of differences with its leader, he was entrusted with the task of photographing and filming the encounters with the supposed beings. These encounters, shrouded in mystery, add a fascinating element of visual proof to the narrative.
Sembrava una cosa da sogno.
It seemed like something out of a dream. You needed to have a creed and a solid nervous system to keep your feet on the ground. The group was not allowed to talk about it, but by Bruno's consent, I told only one person about Amicizia in 6 decades. Otherwise, I always remained silent, always. Before Bruno died, he made the decision to reveal the experience. He called Professor Breccia to write the book, and he told him everything with the names of everyone involved. The aliens I have seen are just like the rest of us. It is difficult to explain because it is complicated. For example, we were in a room, and the radio will turn on by itself, a radio provided by them. We sat around, about 7 or 8 of us, and they started to greet us all in the exact order we were sitting. They could see us somehow. It wasn't our imagination. It was all through technology.
Gaspar agreed to show us photographs in 8mm films he still has in his possession. The images were captured between 1960 and 1965, and in the films we can observe unknown black objects approaching and moving away, as well as rising to a great height. These are the most striking moments of the footage, which lasts more than 4 minutes in total. The silhouettes of buildings can be seen in the mist, and in some images, a chimney that was in the building where Gaspare de Lama lived in Milan can be seen. This image was captured in Treno, near Milan. We can observe the forest and other unknown objects. It has been calculated that its size was 16 feet in diameter. Again, we can observe the movements of this object until it gets out of sight, and then it comes back and approaches the camera at great speed. This case offers a large number of photographs and films that were analyzed by Italian experts. Their thorough analysis provides a reassuring level of credibility to the evidence.
My analysis is based on verifying that it is not misinformation. In my opinion, the image has not been modified. To verify that the video is not fake, there are several programs we can apply to the analysis, which tell us that this image is not a flat manipulated image. This means that it is three-dimensional, which changes depending on the area the object moves across. And not only that, the shadow here is dark. It is less dark in this other part. This means that this object is not superimposed, which makes it quite interesting.
The information I have collected is very interesting because you can detect the depth of field, the tonality, and the image saturation. They reproduce a real environment. The images of the objects are synchronized in the photograph. Therefore, it is not a suspended model because I did not discover the presence of cables, wires, or a rigged extension, nothing like that.
Coming up next, we will investigate what happened on the morning of June 21st, 1978, when a tsunami, apparently without an earthquake, swept the coast of the Adriatic Sea. According to researchers, it was a gigantic explosion that marked the end of the Amicizia project. On June 21st, 1978, a tsunami occurred in the Adriatic Sea without an earthquake having been recorded. According to witnesses, it was as if a huge explosion had occurred under its waters. There were waves more than 60 feet high, and the phenomenon was considered the biggest fluctuation of the Adriatic sea level in the 20th century. It had no real explanation and could not be considered an atmospheric event or an underwater earthquake.
It is interesting to add that the year in which the Amicizia case ended, that is 1978, marked the greatest number of sightings in all the modern Italian ufological history. This information is based on research conducted by renowned ufologists and eyewitness accounts. The Adriatic Sea, exactly in the area where the beings indicated the base was underwater, was a hot spot for the sightings. Many reports described saucers emerging from the sea, descending into the waters or zooming across the sky at great speed.
Roberto Pinotti, perhaps the most important UFO researcher in Italy, was a child when this event occurred, but the details are still fresh in his memory.
Frankly, I don't know if this can be true or not. What is surely true is that the Adriatic Sea was the theater of incredible activities, from Bellaria in the north to Puglia in the south. And fishermen did not want to go out to fish because they were afraid of UFOs, which were seen everywhere, even coming out of the sea and flying away. In Pescara, a report of the Italian Navy, who had a military unit who saw a UFO coming out of the sea and flying away. This was an official case, and newspapers reported it. What is certain is that in 1978 we had the most tremendous UFO wave we had in our country in all times.
In the area of Pescara and over the Adriatic Sea, a large number of reports were presented by fishermen who claimed to have witnessed the presence of alleged flying objects entering and leaving the sea. The event was recorded in a Pescara newspaper, where it could be read that the fishermen were terrified by the presence of UFOs and requested that the Coast Guard accompany them in their work, as their livelihood was at stake.
Several
reports were registered at sea, as well as others on the coast, in the Abruzzo area. A diverse range of sightings, including metallic discoidal objects, red in color, small flotillas, and groups of lights in formation were observed during daytime and nighttime by fishermen. Particularly from 1977 until mid-1979. There was also a great wave of sightings regarding objects that looked like spheres. An infinity of anomalous events that affected the seafarers and fishermen, creating a sense of intrigue because of the variety of phenomena observed during those years.
If true, the implications of the Amicizia project would be impressive and important. The case is not only about sightings or direct contact, but of real interaction with alleged beings from other worlds. They were not only advanced in their technology, but benevolent and willing to help the human race. Undoubtedly, a responsibility for further investigation of this unforgettable case exists, and it is urgent that we act on it.